ways of finishing off. So I can just demonstrate one or two principles here, but might give some help. Okay, to recap garments, actually there are two main ways. One is the propose moss, where you just put the darker layer everywhere, and then you just add lights on. That darker layer can be a bit uneven, often it's better a bit uneven. That's a propose moss. The other is a membrane, where you can model and then put your glazes of your middle colour and then lights. Or you can have a variation of that, which is to put, like here for example, you can put the membrane down first, then do your shading, your modelling if you like, and then do your highlights. You can do it either way. The slight advantage of putting your membrane down first is that it partially seals the gesso, which gives you a bit more time to do your modelling because it's not so absorbent. It gives you more time to shove things around. The second advantage is if you're doing, say, a festal icon, you can get the general colour balance right first. You're not working each thing in isolation. So even if you do it very diluted, you can get a general idea how the colour is working as masses by putting that down first, and then you get down to the detail. But, you know, there are pros and cons either way. And then if it's the membrane technique, modelling glaze or glazer model, then normally no more than 3 different grades of highlighting. So that's where you all are at the moment. So the next 2 or 3 stages are either strengthen your lines, or if your lines are all good, you will still need to deepen the colour of some lines where they go behind or are very deep. So that's what I need to do here. And then the final stage would be, it's not always necessary, but it's always good to include a bit of colour from the neighbouring garment. Or just to give interest, include a bit of colour from somewhere else into the garment. So instead of all just being blue, I'll put washes of vermilion and just the odd place here and there. And this is what's happened here. You can see there a slight purpley tinge. See down here, slight purpley? Mm-hmm. You see that? So it doesn't read as a red, but it's there. And that makes it more united to the rest. If it were green, it might be a touch of yellow. If it were red, it might be a touch of blue in the shadow. What else is there? Red. What are the colours? Yeah, that'd be the main colours we put in. Now, some of you have been finding with your lines, it's possible to make them too opaque, in which case they sort of sit on top. So you've got to be a bit careful with mixing your line redefinitions, that they have enough translucency for the background to come through, but be strong enough to actually register as the line. But in all cases, you should make lines with 2 or 3 passes, in the sense that I'll do it in a rather magnified scale. So you might do exploratory lines, sort of with a fairly dilute mix, and then either with the same mix or with a darker one, you can go over it, but you wouldn't extend the whole length. You would just sort of go part of the length and not extend right over the whole width either. So you've got a sort of slight blur. It's rather bumpy paper, I should do it in card really, but you see what I mean? So that's much more interesting, isn't it, than if it was just a straight line. So it stops at the end, before the end rather, so that grows from white to light blue to dark blue. And it gets wider as you go down the bottom. You could even go again, so it gets darker at the bottom. Okay. Or you can, a variation on that is, instead of going down the middle, you go down one side. So you get a bit of a modelling effect. Okay, so let's look at this. So you might need to re-establish some modelling. Here it's a bit flat, isn't it? So with this dilute mix, I'll just In fact, it's more like re-establishing some shadows. Sometimes you can rework shadows, not with your darker blue in this case, darker colour, but with your other colour, like red, it would be red in this case. So I think I do need to add blue here, but later on, if I found some shadows were a bit on the weak side, instead of modelling with blue, you can put the red in, and the red does darken a bit. I'll just model those two sides, I won't bother about the bottom. They normally develop everything together.